This is going to be the third wrap up I've done this month. It's kind of crazy. Hi guys, it's April, and it's time for my May wrap up. I read a total of 33 books this month, but I'm only going to talk about 5 of them here. I have a Read-A-Rama wrap up, and I also have a Spring into Manga Love wrap up, in which I talk about all of the other books besides these 5. So if you want to know how I did for those, I will link them down below so you can check that out. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk about the other 5 that haven't gotten any love yet. So with me reading 33 books this month, my total books for this year has now reached 95 books. I only need 5 more books and I've reached 100. That's kind of cool. Those 33 books means I read 4,985 pages this month, bringing my total to 21,805 pages for the year. I ended up reading about 161 pages a day, with a total of 32.5 hours read this month, which calculates about 239 pages per hour. So on average, I was reading a book a day. But with all of those stats out of the way, let's start talking about the books that I read. The first 2 books I want to talk about together because they're more of a duology and make sense together, and that is The House of Shadows and The House of Secrets by Darcy Coates. This is the story of Sophie, whose family has hit hard times, so she's forced to marry. She receives a marriage proposal from Mr. Argenton, and she hopes that this will help restore her family's fortune. Once she moves into Northwoods, she starts to notice some very odd things about the house and about the family. This is a gothic romance with a large helping of horror. I liked the aspects of the horror. I found myself very much creeped out, especially in the first book. The first book, I was a lot more creeped out, and the suspense in the first book was a lot greater than the second book. The second book, because you got all of the information and all of the things that were going down in the first book, the second book just kind of felt like an afterthought and followed a lot of the same patterns of the first book. So there wasn't as much anxiety around everything going on. The second book felt very much formulaic. The romance in the series didn't connect. All of this happened very quickly, and all of a sudden there was a lot of attachments that happened within days that didn't feel right because there really wasn't a lot of face-to-face time. And I know things in this time period aren't set up as they are now. And I know that everyone is going through this very traumatic event centered around this house, but still, I did not believe the romance. It felt too forced, and all of a sudden, everybody loves each other just because they can love each other. And I like the horror aspect of this series more than I like the romance aspect of it. I didn't believe any of the characters, but I loved how this story was set up to create that anxiety and that big bad and everything else that goes along with that. My next read was a manga. I received an art copy of No Vampire, No Happy Ending, Volume 1. This is a story of Arika, who is very much a vampire enthusiast. She wants that epic vampire love. She likes to hear about vampires. She believes vampires are very much misunderstood and misrepresented. One day, she stumbles across a vampire who is horrible at being a vampire, so she takes him under her wing and decides to help him be a vampire. The concept of this story, this concept of this plot is very odd and bizarre and over the top. And if you like that almost campy vampire loving aspect of stories, you'll probably like this one. But there's a lot of cross-dressing and sexual confusion thrown in that I found myself rolling my eyes more than I was enjoying the storyline. The art is okay. I'm not going to be continuing on in this manga. I don't think it's something for me. It's too weird and it's too much into the vampire love concept of everything that it's not my cup of tea. Then for my local book club book pick, we decided to read Dangerous Alliance by Jennieke Cohen. This centers around Lady Victoria Aston, who very much idolizes Jane Austen. She loves her stories, she loves her works, and she kind of wishes her life was like those stories. And then, of course, all of a sudden, Vicky or Victoria finds that she must marry or else her family will become destitute. So she enters society hoping to find a husband. At the same time, all of this is happening, one of her childhood friends comes back, and it appears that someone is trying to kill off her family members. Now, this book does have a lot of Jane Austen feels to it, which I loved so much, but you also have this little mystery going on as well. So trying to figure out who done it and why they were doing this and why it was done. I found myself reading this very quickly. It's almost like you took Jane Austen and took a murder mystery without the murder and shoved it together and just threw in a lot of cute little moments, and then you will get this book. I really enjoyed it. It's probably something that at some point I would like to add to my shelf, just because A, the cover is absolutely amazing in the pink that it is, and B, I like Austen, and this has that Austen feel. And then finally, last but not least, for our Tell It Again book club book pick, we read Winter, which is the 4th book in the Lunar Chronicles. This is a reread that Shay and I decided to do. We wanted to go through the whole Lunar Chronicle series again, and oh boy, am I so glad that we did. Winter, of course, centers around the retelling of Snow White. We have this character, Winter, who starts to follow those story and plot points. I don't want to give too much away in case someone hasn't read the Lunar Chronicles series. It's something that could happen, and I don't want to spoil the rest of the books for you. But this takes a sci-fi twist to some of my most loved fairy tales, and I love it. I love it so much. Shay and I did a live show if you want to go check that out. It does contain spoilers, so be warned. It is a thing. We don't know how to not do that when we're talking about these things because we have so many things we want to say. But I do have to say, this is probably a series that I am going to go back and reread a couple times now that I know how much I enjoy rereading it. So those were the rest of the books I read in the month of May. Tell me down below what your favorite book this month was. I would love to hear that. And of course, if you'd like to stay up to date every time I upload, subscribe down below, and I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.